Welcome to this quick demo of Qonda Reports. This is the Qonda Reports home screen that gives you a high-level view of all of the systems that you are monitoring. Each of these concentric circles on these charts represents a different system. On the left we have two portals. One is a portal, one is ArcGIS Online. On the right we have two ArcGIS servers. One is an actual ArcGIS server and the other one is actually services coming from ArcGIS Online. If we want to see more information about the services, we can click on the services page and we get a quick overview of all of our ArcGIS servers that we're monitoring, and then we can actually have a look at the servers in more detail. So we'll click on our ArcGIS server and we can have a look. We have a quick table of information at the bottom here, which basically gives us the name of the service, the type, the folder that it's in, the current status, the number of instances, the number of tables, number of layers, and transactions. For any of these services, we can have a look at more information by clicking on the three dots. So the three dots will open up a modal dialog, which will give you a bit of insight into that particular service. So to start, on the top left here, we have information about the service. So we have the name, we have the source file, so whether it was a Pro project or an MXD, so in this case it's an MXD. We can see what machine it was published from and where the file actually resided when it was published. On the right hand side, we can see which database this is actually connecting to. So in this case it's connecting to an enterprise geodatabase. And then on the bottom we've got the list of layers as per the service, and then bottom right is the list of data items. In this case they're feature classes that come from our geodatabase. So we can close that, and in a similar fashion we can actually look at that in a diagram. So if we click on the little diagram button, we'll actually get a diagram of what we just saw on that modal dialog. So we can see on the left here we've got our geodatabase, we've got our connection to the geodatabase, we've got our three feature classes, we've got our service, and then we've got our layers. So on the right here we can actually see which web maps are actually consuming these layers. And now for any of these diagrams, we can do things like zoom in or zoom out. We can double click on these to collapse them. So if we don't want to see the data items, we can double click on those, get rid of them. We can double click on them to expand them again. We can change the orientation of the diagram if we want something different, or we can put it into a mode where we can drag these things around and organize them how we want. So I'll just put that back to how it was. With any of these diagrams we can also download the file, and that will give us an export of the diagram. In this case the background is actually transparent, so we can't actually we just get a black preview, but if you paste this into a Word document it's actually fine. Okay, so the last little link is actually to open up the item details. So if we click on that, this will actually open up the REST endpoint of the service. So you can see I'm getting prompted to log into the portal that this item belongs to. Okay, so that's a quick tour of services. We can also have a look at portal items. So again, we get a quick overview of all of our portal items and then the individual portals. So if we have a look at our portal 10.9 here, we can see we get a table of information again, and we get those familiar icons which we saw earlier. So for this transportation map, we can click on the three dots, get all of the information. So we see some information on the left in terms of when it was created, who created it, what the access is, the size, and then below that we actually get a table of all of the services that are being used by this web map. In this case this web map's actually not being used by any web apps, otherwise we would see a list over there. And similar to the looking at the service, we can see this in a diagram form. So this diagram looks similar to the last one that we saw, but you can see we have some additional services here. So these are our services that were coming from our ArcGIS server, but we actually have some services here which are grayed out. So these actually mean that it's either an external service or it's missing. So in this case, it's a base map coming from ArcGIS Online. So that's the reason for that. But we get to see from the left-hand side what makes up our web map from left to right, all the way back to our geodatabase. So from there, we can look at more details around our portal. So we can have a look at our users. We can have a look at our groups. We can have a look at our roles. So how many people belong to each role, things like that. And then we can also go back and actually look at our data. So we have, these are all of our workspaces that we have. So we've got that connection to our enterprise geodatabase. So we can click on that, get a list of all of the services that are connecting to this geodatabase, and then the feature classes or tables that are being used by that connection. So you can see we've got a mix of enterprise geodatabases here, and then also some file geodatabases. And then similar to the other pages, we can have a look at this in a diagram form. So from that connection, we can see which services are being used and then which web maps are actually using that connection. And that is a quick tour of Qonda Reports.